All right, so tonight we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in back to our Real Faith series. So if maybe you haven't been here or maybe you're new this summer, or it's your first time tonight, we've been in this book of James kind of all summer and looking at what it means to have real faith. And tonight we're picking back up in James chapter 5. So if you guys have your Bibles with you, you're going to be jumping into the Word right away. So grab your Bible, flip there, turn there now. If you don't have a Bible, you're like, I don't own a Bible, Pastor Blake. We do have Bibles for you guys. They're in the back. So just throw up your hand and a leader can get you a Bible. If you don't have one, or maybe you're like, I just forgot mine tonight, there are some in the seats below you guys. Grab a Bible, but get to James chapter 5. There might not be one under every seat, but some of the seats got one. If you don't got one, it's okay. The words will be on the screen. But we're going to be in James chapter 5. And tonight, as we continue to look at the book of James and what he has to share to these Jewish Christians and us tonight, you're going to see that if you pay very close attention to the words that James uses, he kind of comes out swinging tonight. He doesn't hold back with a single word that he says to these Jewish Christians. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right on into the text. Verse 1, chapter 5, James says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you." So I don't know if you guys caught the language that James is using here, but it's really intense. He's trying to make a point to these people. He's been talking to them for 4 chapters now about what real faith looks like, what that means for them. And now he's like, listen. He's like, I've been kind of sugarcoating it. I've been giving it to you a little easier. Not anymore. He's not holding back any punches. He's full sending everything he's got to say to these believers. And I think it's really important that we understand that, because this passage right here is one that's often overlooked by a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians see this passage, and we often think that James is just talking to people about money, about their wealth, and the problems that it has. And we think, well, I'm not rich, so it doesn't really apply to me. I don't have all this wealth in my life. And that's probably true for a lot of you here tonight. You're like, Pastor Blake, I don't got a job. I got $3.24 to my name. I can't even buy a pack of gum in today's economy. Like, this means nothing to me. But can I tell you that what James is getting at tonight is not just about your finances. It's not just about the wealth you have in your life. James is addressing a much deeper issue, and it's something that we've kind of been talking about week after week in the book of James. But tonight is a night where we're going to see that James is like, I've had enough. I got to tell you everything there is. And James wants to expose a problem in the lives of believers and the believers that he's writing to, and I believe it applies to us here tonight as well. And he wants us to understand that what we value and what we allow to have control in our lives can have a deep impact, and that we have to examine our hearts and ask what those things are. So if you're taking notes tonight, which I encourage you all to do, you can go ahead and title tonight's message, "What Has Control of You?" What has control of you? You see, there's a great danger that is out there. And it's something that we often overlook, because we've all been conditioned by culture and society to believe this idea that we have to have more in our lives. That even though we have something, we have to go seek the next thing. We have to go get another thing. Whether it's you got new shoes, or you need new clothes, or you need the newest phone, you have to have more followers, you have to be popular, you have to have success. Whatever it is, you say, I just need one more. I just need a little bit more of it. Can I tell you tonight that that's a lie of the world? You don't need one more to have satisfaction in your life, to have happiness in your life, to have joy in your life. That's a lie that the world has taught us and that we walk in and we believe. It's something that was happening 2,000 years ago, and this is something that James is trying to make aware to these believers. And James is trying to remind these believers that everything in the world is temporary. And so for those of you that are taking notes, for the first point tonight, you can go ahead and write this down, and it's that things of the world will not last. If we look back at verse 2 and 3, James said, Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded. James is describing the things that these people are attached to. I know today's day and age, we still see these things as money has value, right? You're like, your clothes has value. And this is something that 2,000 years ago that these people were also placing all this value on. And James is calling it out, right? It's their wealth, it's their gold, it's their silver, it's their clothes, it's the possessions or the materialistic things of this world. These are things that we still have value on today. But what James is talking about is not just necessarily maybe the wealth or the gold, but it's all the materialistic things that we place value on in our lives. It doesn't have to be these specific things. And James is trying to let us know that these things don't last. They'll rot. They'll be destroyed. They're not going to be with us in an eternity. And so we need to stop putting our focus on those things. The things that we chase in this world, the things that we say will make us happy if I just have this one thing, will bring us temporary satisfaction. But when it comes to eternity, we will have no satisfaction if this is all that we pursue. So, with that, I have a question for you because I need to understand, if you guys understand where I'm going with this tonight, how many of you have ever wanted a new phone? Okay, a lot of you, right? Well, I remember when I got my first iPhone, I was in 7th grade, and I got an iPhone 5C. And I know you're probably like, yo, Pastor Blake, that's crazy, an iPhone 5, like what? Listen, let me tell you, an iPhone 5C was the biggest thing ever. That was like the first time they came out with smartphones where you could choose a different color. They had like 5 different colors. I had a lime green one. Let me tell you, that was the best one if you didn't know. But anyway, that's not the point of this. The point is, I got that phone, and I was so happy. I was not even just happy, I was ecstatic. It was like the best day of my life. I finally had a smartphone. I got to move on from having a slide phone. Yeah, I know, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to have a slide phone. So, but listen, it was the best day of my life. But about 3 months later, the iPhone 6 dropped. And I was like, yo, Mom, I got to have that phone. She's like, you just got a phone. What do you mean you got to have that phone? And so I begged, and I begged, and I begged for another phone, because if I got this phone, I knew I would be happy because I needed the latest, I needed the greatest, I needed the best. And so I begged over and over and over and over again, and finally, later on in the year, I was doing well in school, I was doing well in my sports, and my mom was like, all right, fine, we'll get you the new phone. And I got the new phone, and I was happy. But months prior to that, all I wanted was the iPhone 5C. I wanted the iPhone that was going to make me happy, but now all of a sudden there was something else out there that was going to make me even happier, and I just needed a little bit more so I would be happy. And now this other thing has become something completely useless, something that's just another object that exists. But I have been so caught up in having the newest and the best of things that I didn't even realize that I had already said that this would make me happy. But instead I went and pursued a better version of it. And I think that this is something that we often do in our lives. We tell ourselves, well, if I just get a new version of it, if I just have the best version of it, it'll be all right. I just need more. I just need more. But when we get to that point in our lives, we've fallen into the lives of the world. We've fallen for the trap. The world will promise you, if you just get a little bit more, you'll be happy. If you just get what you need, your life will be perfect. Your life will be grand. But that's not the truth. And Jesus was addressing this problem to people 2,000 years ago. If we go to the book of Matthew in chapter 6, verses 19 through 21, we see that what James is talking to us about now, Jesus has already brought to the attention of these people. And in verse 19, Jesus said, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus had already given this message, and James knows this, and he's seeing these believers who aren't living it out. They're seeking the new iPhone. They're seeking the next best thing. And so James now is essentially rephrasing what Jesus said a little bit, but he's coming at it with a way harsher tone because it's already been laid out for them. They should already know this. They claim to have this real and genuine faith, and yet they're not living it out. Jesus and James, the Bible, it tells us that we need to not build our lives around things that'll eventually disappear. Our lives need to be built on God. And if we go jump back into the text here in James, he takes it a step further and he says that this corrosion will be evidence against you. James is not only telling them what you're seeking, what you're pursuing is maybe not right now, but he's also saying, listen, there's an even greater consequence to this. There's a day of judgment that is going to come that we all will face. It's a day before when we go before the Lord. Whether it's when we die or when Jesus returns, there will be a day where we come before the Lord and we will face judgment for the lives that we lived. These things that we pursue, these things that we seek are not going to be the thing that help us and save us when we get to that place of judgment. Only our faith in Jesus Christ, the one who died on the cross and rose 3 days later for our sins, will help us in that moment. And James wants these believers to understand that because they claim to have this faith, yet they're getting it all wrong. And not only that, he's letting them know that the things where they're getting it wrong at in life are actually going to be used as evidence against them when they stand before God. We are only saved by putting our faith in Jesus Christ. Nothing in this world will ever save you. It will never do anything for you long term. It might bring that temporary satisfaction, but long term, you're cooked. Like literally and figuratively, you're cooked. If these things can't save you, and the things of this world are temporary, then why do we let them become the most important things in our lives at times? This leads me to my second point tonight, which is be careful what you allow to control you. James is challenging the culture at his time. Culture says the more you have, the better it is. And it's true for us today, too. People say that all the time. People of wealth at this time had an advantage in society. When they had more wealth, when they had more possessions, they were seen as more influential. They were seen with a greater position or a greater power. They were seen as more successful. They were seen as more important on a whole different level in society. Compare it to how we as a culture and society look at people like Elon Musk. We think he's on this whole other level because of his wealth and the things that he has in his life. And James is like, yo, these things don't actually do any of that for you. When you look at the cross and the things that Jesus did on the cross for us, we are all on the same playing field. And the things of this world mean nothing in your eternity with the Lord. So much so that James is essentially communicating to these believers that your wealth, not only is it not helping you, but it's becoming a spiritual handicap in your life. Put that in terms for us today. The things that you pursue of this world, these materialistic things that you pursue so much and that have allowed to control you in your life, are handicapping you in your walk with God. And James is alluding to something that I think a lot of believers sometimes get twisted because we're like, this is about wealth, Pastor Blake. This is about wealth. It's about money. It's not about these materialistic things. These things are fine. Well, if it was about wealth, I think we would go down a different rabbit trail. But I can tell you that it's not about wealth because that's addressed at a different part of the Bible. And so we need to understand that what James is talking about is not just the things, money, the world, that we often think it is here. He's talking about everything that we pursue, even if it's a friend, even if it's a family. That's not necessarily a materialistic thing of this world, but are you pursuing those things more than God? And are you letting them control you? If we pick back up in Matthew and we go to verse 24 in chapter 6, right, a little bit jump down from where we were just at in Matthew, Jesus said something, and he said, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." Jesus isn't trying to tell them that it's difficult to serve two different things. He's not saying that. He's saying you cannot serve two different things. You can serve one or you can serve the other, but you try to serve both, and one of them is going to win. It's going to overpower the other, and it's going to become the master of your life. Jesus saw this in society. He saw it in culture. He laid it out for us. And James is emphasizing that because it's something that we see that is struggled in the Bible all throughout, and it's something that we have to understand today too. We cannot serve two masters. And I believe that James is forcing us to ask ourselves a question tonight. What has our hearts? Do your possessions have control of your heart? Or do you have control of your possessions? And this leads me to my third and final point for us tonight, which is what controls you changes how you live. What controls you changes how you live. Jumping back into James here in verse 4, he says, "Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you." These people loved the wealth in their life so much that they were willing to hurt other people to achieve it, to obtain it. Whether it was on an emotional level, a mental level, or a physical level, they were willing to harm other people to achieve this wealth in their life. And continuing on in verse 5, James says, "You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence." And then in verse 6, we see that this selfishness of these believers that claim to have this real faith is so extreme that James goes to say and said, "You have condemned and murdered the righteous person." Let that sink in tonight. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. Now, when he's saying this, he's not talking about literally murdering these people, but essentially, in a spiritual sense, you have murdered them. And another way to look at it is this: you pursued the things of your wealth so much more in life that you didn't care about somebody else's salvation, somebody else's eternity. You were willing to sacrifice that so that you could have wealth. James is saying, why do we claim to have real faith, and then this is how we live? There's a progression taking place all throughout the book of James that we have to notice because it paints to a bigger picture of what we need to do in our lives and what we need to examine in our hearts. Because whatever controls our hearts will control our actions. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Culture celebrates all the things that God is warning us about. Culture will tell you to seek as much as you can and have as much as you can, but God and Jesus tell us to live generously. Culture tells you to make yourself happy and make sure you have everything that you want in life, but Jesus has told us to deny ourselves and pick up our cross daily. We have to remember, just because culture has conditioned us or called us to live in a certain life doesn't mean that it's always right. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the gifts that the Lord has given us, the things that we have in this world to enjoy. But there's a danger when the enjoyment of these gifts or the pursuit of these gifts becomes more important than the one who's given us them. James is warning these believers. He wants them to get it right before it's too late. And so I believe that it's something that is for us tonight as well. We have to make a choice, and we have to make a moment where we pivot and we stop pursuing the things of the world